Hi everyone and welcome back to Law School Uncensored. I'm Advocate Aishwarya Sandeep and today we are going to discuss a topic that is often overlooked by startups, entrepreneurs, creators, law students and even many lawyers themselves. That is your intellectual property audit, which is commonly known as IP audit. Now, whenever people hear the word audit, they immediately think of financial audits or tax audits. However, intellectual property is also one of the most valuable assets of any business today. And just like financial assets, intellectual property also needs periodic review and assessment. Now, an IP audit helps businesses identify what intellectual property they own and whether it is adequately protected, whether they are infringing someone else's rights, and whether their intellectual property is something that is being commercialized properly. Now, if you are a startup founder, a manufacturing company, maybe a software developer, a filmmaker, YouTuber, fashion designer, or even a law firm, understanding IP audits can save you from costly litigation and unlock significant commercial opportunities. So, in today's video, we are going to understand what exactly is an IP audit, when and why is an IP audit necessary, when should an IP audit be conducted, how is it exactly carried out, and what exactly are the factors that you need to consider while conducting an IP audit. Which documents are you going to review? What are the common mistakes that a lot of businesses make? And what are the best practices for Indian law? So let's begin. So first thing we'll address is what exactly is an IP audit. Now, an intellectual property audit is a systematic review of all intellectual property assets which is owned, used, licensed or developed by an individual or an organization. The objective here is to identify, evaluate, verify and manage intellectual property assets. Now think of it like a health checkup but for your IP portfolio. Instead of examining your financial statements, an IP audit, it examines assets like your trademark, copyright, patents, industrial designs, geographical indication, trademark secrets, domain names, softwares, databases, brand identity, logos, packaging, confidential know-how, business process, marketing materials, your mobile applications, websites, AI generated content and digital assets. Now this audit, it usually identifies whether these assets are legally protected, commercially valuable and whether they are properly documented and free from legal risk. So let's talk about why exactly do I need this IP audit. Now, there are several objectives behind conducting an IP audit. The first is, of course, identification. Now, many businesses do not even realize that they own intellectual property. For example, a startup may think it is only owning the logo. However, it may also own the software, the website, customer database, product manuals, marketing content, training modules, packaging, mobile application, your proprietary algorithms, and even confidential business method. The second objective is, but of course, your risk management. Now, an audit, it usually identifies whether the company is unknowingly infringing someone else's intellectual property. The third motive, commercialization. Now, many companies possess valuable IP that remains, unlicensed or underutilized. The audit, it helps you to identify opportunities for monetization through maybe licensing, franchising, assignments, or technology transfer. The fourth objective is compliance. Now, businesses, they have to, however, comply with IP laws, licensing agreements, employment contracts, NDAs, software licensing, and third-party rights. When is the right time to conduct an IP audit? So an IP audit is usually conducted during important business event. Like when we were working, a lot of times whenever there used to be some foreigners who used to invent, or when you worked with some foreign companies in collaboration, IP audit was one thing which was very mandatory for them, especially the US based companies. So if you are a startup, then before incorporating or before investment, maybe during mergers and acquisitions, selling a business, or before you license a technology, before your franchising, during your due diligence, before your IPO, while entering into international markets, restructuring, or before filing of lawsuits, or after receiving infringement notices. Okay, these are the various circumstances under which you will conduct an IP audit. It is also advisable to conduct an annual IP audit, just like you conduct your financial IP audit, so that you know where, especially for companies, which are exclusively running on developing and exploiting intellectual property. Now, just as companies conduct annual financial audits, they should also review their intellectual property portfolios. Because the other thing is, technology is something that changes rapidly overnight. Employees leave and new products are launched every now and then. So brands need to evolve, and without regular audits, businesses lose a lot of valuable intellectual property, which is not exploited. So let's talk about different types of IP audits now. Now, generally, there are three major categories. The first one is your general IP audit. This covers basically all the intellectual property which is owned by the organization. Second is the limited purpose audit, which is conducted for a very specific transaction. For example, when you're raising a venture capital, you're selling a business, or you're licensing a software. Third is the due diligence audit. Now, this is usually conducted before mergers, acquisitions, joint ventures, or strategic partnership. Investors always want to know whether the company it truly owns the intellectual property it claims. Now, you need to remember, especially for startups or companies like software companies, which are your whole idea behind pitching your idea is that I have developed this particular intellectual property. So in order to prove that, you need to have your IP audit report in place. How exactly is this conducted? Now let's understand the step by step, the structured process. So step one is you need to understand and identify the intellectual property assets, which is by preparing a complete inventory. Include what is registered trademark, your pending trademark application, copyright registrations, patents, design registrations, trade secrets, domain names, social media handles, software codes, mobile application, advertising material, your product catalogs, training manuals, confidential information, artistic work, photographs, videos, musics, and marketing campaign. Step two, you have to verify the ownership. Now, just because you say that you are the owner, you may not be exactly the owner. I'll give you one simple example. A problem which usually happens in the ad industry. So brands, they hire the agencies to create content, to create the digital advertisement. But in the ad industry, it's a, unknown, it's a very unregistered practice that the agency owns the IP of the advertisement which is created. I know it goes against the textbook, it goes against the law, but that is what has been the practice here. So in this case, you need to ensure that the brand has already got a release letter from the agency. They have paid sufficiently to get the digital rights transferred. So that's why you need to verify the ownership, whether the brand actually owns the content that it is claiming. So ownership is something that's extremely important. You need to ask questions like, who created it? Was it created by an employee? Do you have the release letters? Do you have the handover letter? Was it created by a freelancer? Was it a work for hire? Do you have any assignment agreement? Was it legally transferred? Are employment contracts, are they assigning the IP to the company? Now, a lot of startups fail because the startups assume, the founders assume that they are paying a freelancer, so they automatically transfer the ownership. Now, legally and technically, that is incorrect. Without proper assignment agreements or transfer agreements, ownership still remains with the creator. Your step 3 is to verify these registrations. Always check whether the trademark registrations are completed. Is it pending? Patent filing status, your design registration, copyright, renewal deadlines, about international registrations. If you're having your product in multiple countries, what is the status of their registration? Expired registrations, your pending opposition. Step 4 is to review the contracts. Now, this is one of the most important, step or an aspect. You need to review your employment agreements, your consultancy agreements in order to ensure that the rights have been transferred. Okay. Apart from that, you have to review your NDAs, your software licenses, trademark, technology agreements, assignment agreements, your licensing agreements, publishing, distributing, franchise, vendor, your JV agreements. A lot of IP disputes originate because contracts are very poorly drafted. Now, let's talk about the final step, that is your risk assessment. You need to identify whether there is a chance of potential infringement or third party violation or counterfeit products, trademark conflict, software piracy, copyright violation, if there is an improper licensing, if there is a trade secret leakage, employee misuse, if there is AI generated content risk, if there's an open source compliance. All these things you need to verify. And when you are doing an audit or a due diligence, you have to be like an astrologer. You should be able to predict the future. Even though it's not exact, you should be able to guess that whether there is going to be a damage, whether these risks are something that I may face in future. Then comes the valuation. You need to estimate the commercial value, whether this can be licensed. If yes, then for how much amount? For 1 year, what is the amount of license fees that I'm going to charge? Can this IP be sold? What is the value at which I'm looking? Can it be franchised? Can it be securitized? Can it generate royalty? All these things you need to sit and discuss with the founders or your core team. Then we'll talk about what exactly are the factors that you need to consider during an IP audit. We've already covered it. Again, for the sake of brevity, I'll explain. One is, of course, your ownership. Is the ownership legally established? Registration. Has the product or the IP been registered? Is it pending? When are these registrations going to expire? For example, your trademark, your patents, they expire after a certain time. Is it geographically protected? Is it protected only in India or is it protected internationally? How much of commercial value or revenue is your IP generating? Has it been licensed properly? Has it been franchised properly? Is there any litigation which is currently pending in the court, or maybe trademark opposition, any type of litigation? If you've got any infringement notice, is anything that is pending with respect to your IP? Then comes your infringement risk. Is there any violation of any third party rights? Have the employees assigned the IP? That's why you need to check your employment agreements, your NDAs, your confidentiality agreements. Are your trade secrets protected adequately? Is your confidential information protected? Now, does the business comply with your Personal Data Protection Act, especially when you are dealing with your database, which is also a type of your IP? Are your trademarks being used consistently? How often are you using your logo, uh, your trademark, your word mark, color mark, etc.? Have you properly registered and filed your assignment deeds? Is your software that you're using or you have developed, is it something that's been legally licensed? Has AI generated content been reviewed for copyright ownership and licensing compliance? Now, I'll just give you a quick example. Imagine there is a startup which is developing an AI powered legal research platform. Now, during the IP audit, the auditors discover that the software was developed by freelancers and no IP assignment exists. The company logo is something that's not registered, which is a huge red flag. The domain name is registered in the founder's personal name. Quite a common problem when there are multiple founders. One founder leaves and then the entire company collapses because they end up for paying, the registrations or the IP which is owned by that one person. Open source software has been used without complying with the license condition. Again, a red flag. A lot of people think, especially while using ChatGPT and Claude for your, software development. A lot of startups have been using it, but you need to check the licensing condition. A lot of times employee NDAs are missing, your collaborative, your freelancers consultancy agreement NDAs are missing, your customer data protection policies are incomplete. Now, this audit, it immediately identifies the legal risk even before investors conduct basic due diligence. Now, if these issues are undiscovered, funding could be delayed or rejected. So it is not only the company, sometimes it is the investors also who do this IP audit and IP due diligence. Now, this action of intellectual property audit, it's not something that's just a legal exercise only when you're raising fund. It's also a very strategic business tool because it enables organizations to identify, protect, manage and monetize their intangible assets while you minimize the legal and commercial risk. Now, as intellectual property is increasingly becoming a company's most valuable asset, conducting periodic IP audits, they are no longer optional. Whether you're a startup, a MNC, a content creator, or a law firm, regular IP audits, they strengthen your legal position and enhance investor confidence. They also help you improve the overall value of your business. So, if you're a law student who's mastering the process of IP audits, it can open up a very rewarding niche in advisory, due diligence, mergers and acquisition, technology transaction, and startup consulting. Now, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Law School Uncensored. Let me know in the comments which IP topic you would like to cover next, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.